What's up, guys? We're here, Split Decisions, episode 4. What's up, Jeremy? How you doing?
What up, everybody? What up? Just saw the Celtics blow the greatest comeback in NBA history. Now, I loved it because I hate Boston.
Should at least try to make it a little exciting. I mean, snooze
I
fest. You
know.
feel bad, sucks. Jason Tatum going out hurt, but
First play of the game.
crazy how shit works out like that. But no UFC action this weekend, but Split Decision podcast, you already know, is still in action. We had a lot to talk about. A lot of great, mostly boxing really carried the weekend. A lot of great boxing fights. It's almost like they planned it out to really go hard when the UFC is not around, no competition. But they did a great job, put on some good fights, and we're excited to talk to you guys about them.
Yeah, I mean, like to start off the weekend, Michael Conlon just got knocked down the fifth round by Luis Alberto Lopez. Um, Michael Conlon is like, he's the guy that came in, just a ton of hype. He had a bronze medal in the Olympics. But Luis Alberto Lopez is just too crafty, man. Like he was in there. He's so unconditioned, so on. Like he's just so different. He doesn't do things normally. I mean, he's a boxer. He's a champ.
Unconventional.
Yeah, unconventional. Thank you. He's a championship boxer, and he's like throwing punches from the hip, and he's throwing looping shots. So I was super impressed by Luis Alberto Lopez. By the way, before we even get into breaking down this fight, I was watching this on ESPN Plus, and the feed kept fucking cutting out. The feed cut
ESPN,
out
it
like four.
sucks, dude. I've paid
ESPN,
for pay-per-views and I've had that happen
dude,
all night, man.
uh,
It's a shit
ESPN
show
Plus needs to
sometimes.
fix their shit. I missed like probably a total of like 80 seconds of this fight, and it was pissing me off. Anyways, that was in my notes, so I had to say it. Anyways, Colin, Michael Collins, a guy who like he doesn't have a fixed stance. He's not necessarily as good at switching stances as like Terrence Crawford, who we'll talk about later. But Colin can fight from both stances, and he started out southpaw. He has a super wide stance, and Colin wasn't doing horrible. He was landing shots and stuff, but Lopez was just winning the fight the whole time. Lopez was controlling the pace. Lopez wanted the fight fast paced. Conor wanted the fight slow paced, and the fight was fast paced. Lopez was controlling it. I love to see from Lopez. He was smiling mid fight, like he was
A
like
lot of
he would.
confidence.
Yeah, exactly. He would
Which I
see
mean, with
Michael.
his type of style, it's kind of like the confidence is built into it, because he's so wild, you can't go out there, and not have confidence when you fight with
Exactly,
his kind of recluse style.
exactly. I mean, he would see Michael Conlon do something and he would just smile. Like he wasn't even smiling after he hit Michael Conlon. He was smiling before he hit Michael Conlon. Like he could see what was coming. Um, so Lopez KO'd Michael Conlon in the fifth round with this like mean right uppercut, man. I mean, Michael Conlon fell back, his head bounced off the canvas, but Lopez was looking for that shot all night. We saw him more than multiple times in the fight, loading up that uppercut, setting up that uppercut, and it landed. Just like, I mean, what I take away from this fight is that Lopez controlled it. He was a better man. He controlled Colin. He controlled the fight. Michael Conlon was playing to Lopez's rules, to Lopez's style. And Lopez, man, I mean, he is one of the best featherweights in the world, if not the best.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple guys that we're about to talk about. I mean, Lee Wood definitely deserves a shout after his win tonight, but I mean, I'd have a hard time saying picking anyone over Luis Alberto Lopez right now. As a fellow Irish Michael, I was definitely rooting for Conlon, with some cool similarities there. But I mean, this kid is someone I'm definitely a fan of just because his style, like you said, man, you broke his style down, but it's just so entertaining. And he's really a fighter. He's seen boxing. I feel like he's really one of the guys in the lighter weight classes, in that Tank Davis sort of category who's going out there and looking to finish fights when he fights. He's not really gonna piece you apart, break you down, which is great. Those styles of fighters are awesome, but he's going in there to knock you out. And I mean, this is two huge wins in a row now, beating Warrington and now Conlon. What do you think's next for him? I mean, who do you want to see him fight next?
Oh man, I don't know. I mean, he's at the top of that featherweight division, and he is cruising, man. I mean, he looked great in his fight against Warrington. He's looked great in this fight. So I don't know who I'd want him to fight next. I mean, obviously Lee Wood just won this weekend, and Lee Wood beat a Mexican, and this guy just beat a Northern Irish. So there could be some beef there or some good matchmaking, some good
Storytelling.
storylines. Yeah, exactly. But we'll see. I mean, Brandon Figueroa's up there, Ray Vargas, so anybody.
Yeah, a lot of good fights that could be made.
Yeah, I mean, also on that card, which was not like if it wasn't very hyped up. I mean, most people don't know either of these guys, and I don't blame them to be honest. But Nick Ball, on the undercard of that fight, outpaced Lodumo Lamonti from South Africa. He won the WBC silver featherweight title. Nick Ball looked great. Nick Ball is this like small, stocky kind of guy, and like Lamonti had the reach advantage by a lot, but Ball just like blitzed him and blitzed him over and over again. Like at the beginning of the fight, the announcers were saying like, "Oh, Nick Ball is overexerting himself trying to land these punches, blah blah blah." But Nick Ball didn't stop. Like this guy is super aggressive. I say if you haven't seen that fight, the Nick Ball Lamati fight, you should go back and watch it because it was a good fight, and Nick Ball was just pressing the pace, was just pressing the pressure the whole time. I mean, he was cutting inside, he was jumping in, catching Lamati on the inside. The feed was cutting out during that fight too, just to say. Um, and this wasn't like a total like one punch. I mean, it was a decision. This wasn't anything like super crazy, but Nick Ball was just slowly weakening, slowly fatiguing Lamati out. And like in the later rounds, he just really started to dominate and impress. Nick Ball looked good.
Yeah, I mean, I think he really weaponized his pace and pressure as you were touching on. A good win, not two guys I was too familiar with going into, and I haven't seen a lot of their fights, but I mean, Nick Ball's definitely someone we should all keep an eye out, and he'll be in some big fights going forward.
Yep.
Okay, and then another great, I mean, it's just crazy the kind of caliber of fights that just happened this weekend in the boxing world. Lee Wood gets revenge. This was an immediate rematch against Marcio Lara. He won the WBA featherweight title. Coming in, I believe there was some stories circulating that Wood was having trouble making weight, didn't look good on the scales, but it ended up Lara looked really flat, by far the worst performance of his career, and Lee Wood, controls the range and delivers a good performance. And now he's got, like we were hinting at before, a really big, he's gonna look to start collecting these titles and unify some belts here.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at this fight as a whole, Lee Wood obviously won. He was the better fighter. He landed the more shots. His jab looked good. Like he was just overall the sharper man. But when you watch the fight, and you see Mauricio Lara land on Lee Wood, you can just tell the power difference. Like as you said, Mauricio Lara was flat. He didn't have much energy. Like he didn't look like his normal self. But when he landed on Lee Wood, it was so obvious. It made the power difference so obvious because Lee Wood, when he would land on Mauricio Lara, like Laura's head wouldn't really snap back. When Laura would land on Lee Wood, pretty much every single time Lee Wood's head would snap back, and he'd be like, he'd really take it. So that's one thing. Obviously, Lee Wood won this fight. That being said, he's like by far the better man. In the first fight, Mauricio Lara's left hook was doing a lot of damage to Lee Wood. And I believe that's a shot that ended the fight. I can't say that for certain though. Don't quote me on that. But we saw Wood and his coach Ben Davidson, prepare for this. Lee Wood was blocking that left hook with his right hand the whole fight. So you love to see that from fighters, improving, trying really hard, looking back at their mistakes and changing what they did to change the outcome of, those past fights. He was blocking that left hand. Um, Wood was just in control. The whole time he was in control of the range. We saw it really well. He'd like jump in, tag Laura, then jump out. And Laura would swing at him and he'd miss by like more than 8 inches or something because Wood was just in and out like that, which was super impressive. Um, I
Yeah, I
think,
mean, I think the jab is a great and way to tell, he just has a really
yeah,
good understanding of range, like you were saying, not just offensively with his weapons, but defensively as well. He knows where to be, where he shouldn't be. Like you said, getting knocked out and then coming back and winning the next fight in an immediate rematch is not an easy thing to do. It's not something we see too much, I don't think.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, I think that maybe when Lara was landing clean on him and didn't put him down, didn't put him out, maybe it discourages you, especially someone who has consistently been able to put people out in his career. It's like almost like why, especially if he caught him clean a couple times, and when you don't, a shot that maybe clean as he knocked him out in the last fight with connects and he doesn't go down. He eats it. He keeps coming forward. He keeps landing his own offense. It's discouraging, and we've seen Wood battle the adversity better tonight.
yeah. I mean, you're 100% right. I think what also cost Lara this fight, he missed the weight and then he looks like this. So there's probably something was off. But also Lara was just too patient. He was like looking for one punch the whole fight. And against a guy like Lee Wood and a trainer like Ben Davidson, you can't just look for one punch the whole fight because that guy will outbox you the whole time. So yeah, great win by Lee Wood.
Yeah, then moving on, Jack Catterall comes back off a long layoff since his robber in his last fight. Josh Taylor beat him in a highly contentious decision. Not fighting the highest level of competition, but after a layoff, I'm not too mad at that. Let him shake the rust off. He fought Darrell Foley, who is not someone I'm too familiar with. But
Nobody
Catterall,
is.
yeah, whatever. He had a long layoff. Let him take a warm up.
Yeah.
Now let's see him get back in there quick, make a quick turnaround, and fight someone real high level because he looked great. He looked really good. I mean, really, really good.
Yeah. I mean, I think, the best fighter of the weekend was Jack Catterall. He looked amazing. Like he didn't lose 1 second of this fight. We talked about Lee Ward's jab, but it was really Jack Catterall's jab that was like incredible. I mean, that was the number one punch he landed the whole fight. I think like that was like the main thing. He was landing those jabs all day. Foley's head was just like on a straight line. He wasn't moving his head. And so does that take away from Jack Catterall's performance? I guess so a little bit, but like what, you're gonna tell your opponent to do better? Like that doesn't make any sense. Jack Catterall was just piecing him up the whole fight. That being said, he was robbed in his last fight. You could argue that Jack Catterall is the best fighter in his weight class,
Yeah, I mean,
with
he
this.
definitely this fight coming up is between Teofimo and Josh Taylor just
Yeah,
in a week, 2 weeks. He definitely has a shot at a claim for that shot for the winner of that fight. Definitely if Josh Taylor wins, but even if Teofimo wins, um, and that would be a great fight. Unify some belts there too.
yeah. I mean, you love to see it. That's another good fight for boxing. Like boxing's doing really well this weekend. Again, you can't put enough emphasis on Catterall's jab, on his overall performance. He was looking good to the body. He was clearly the better man. He knocked Foley down with a left hand earlier in the fight, and then in the ninth round had this crazy knockout where he like threw some punches to the body that went up top. It was just like picture perfect boxing 101. Um, so Catterall looked amazing, man, and
And I
I'd
mean,
love to
credit
see
to
what's next
Foley
for
for
him.
surviving.
Yeah.
At least.
Mm.
And then I mean, I think there was maybe one other fight of note. Chris Billum Smith, he beat Lawrence Coley for the cruiserweight title WBO. This was kind of like, some people say like heavyweight UFC fights are sloppy. This was kind of like a sloppy heavyweight fight. But it is of note because this guy Lawrence Coley came in undefeated champion, and Chris Billum Smith was a big underdog. Wish I bet it would have made some real
Yeah.
nice money on it. But Yeah, not too much going on in the cruiserweight division, not too many big names. So at least a shake up top, because Okoli was one of the guys up top. So at least something's a little shaken up now, we'll see some new blood in there.
Yeah, as you said, Oakley was one of the top guys. I mean, he was, according to ESPN divisional rankings, he was number two in the division. And he gets beat by a guy, Chris Boone-Smith, who wasn't even in the top 10, who I honestly hadn't heard about before this weekend. And so, you know, Bill Smith looked good. Okolie was just sloppy. Like they get into these like grappling exchanges, and like Lawrence Okolie would like push him against the ropes, and the guy Bill Smith would literally be sitting on like the last rope, and Okolie would be throwing punches. Like that's not even boxing. Um, but huge win by Bill Smith.
Yeah, and I mean I think that pretty much covers most of the fights that happened. I don't know if there's anything else you want to talk about, but real quick, there is as great of a weekend as it was for actual boxing fights, kind of the biggest thing going on in the boxing world is overshadowing that all is finally again, hopefully for real this time. We'll all pray, no one's gonna believe it till they're in the ring together. Earl Spence, Terrence Crawford, July 29th on pay-per-view for the pound for pound number one fighter in the world. I mean, we know I don't want to get our hopes up too much. It's been official before, it's been announced before, but we're not far out from the date. They've been committed to making this fight for a while. With there's no barring an injury, I think we definitely see this fight happen. So, and I can't wait. This is probably the best fight that boxing could put on. It's definitely, up there. Um, I, for one, always kind of thought Terrence Crawford would win that match. I just think he's the best fighter in the world, one or if not two. But I mean, it's been a while since he's been in there. He's only getting older. I believe he's 35 now. Earl Spence isn't a spring chicken either, so this is two veterans, two legends. But this fight could have happened a few years ago, and we'll see the form of Crawford. I mean, it's kind of like I don't know, man. It's almost impossible to predict, I'd say. But what are your thoughts on this fight? I think we could say how enthralled we are to be having it.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, even before getting into the technical side of the fight, this is like, I don't know, the 100th time that this fight has been rumored or talked about happening. But now it seems kind of official. It's set for July 29th on Showtime pay-per-view. And this is just a great fight for boxing, obviously. I know I probably said this in every single episode, but like boxing's doing better. We had Ryan Garcia, Tank, Haney, Loma. Now we have this, Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford. So this is just great. Two of the top, arguably the top two pound for pound fighters in the world. Finally going at it. Two older guys, as you said, both in their mid-30s. So this will be a ton of fun, man. I mean, I don't know who to pick. Like a lot of people, Terrence Crawford has been inactive. He fights like once a year. But
If
Errol
that.
Spence, yeah. But Errol Spence has fought once since 2021. Since
Exactly. I mean, it's
2020, he's
just
fought
who
once. So
knows, but I mean, it's gonna be a good one.
it's gonna be a great one. I mean, you know,
Where's the fight happening? In Vegas?
ooh, I don't know.
I would guess it has to be a Vegas card.
Yeah, something like that. But these are two top fighters, man, and to see this happening
Yeah,
like
T-Mobile Arena, Vegas.
T-Mobile Arena, yep. One of these guys is going to come out at top, and one of these guys' stock is just going to explode. I mean, their stock is already very high, but beating another guy that's at the top of the pound for pound list, like that's just something that boosts your view of by boxing fans so much. I mean,
With that being said, though, as much as the winner has to gain, I think this loser, whoever loses this fight, I mean, both of these guys, like we said, are both older in their career. This is both probably, at the tail end of the career. They're not in their athletic primes anymore. That's just speaking from, a scientific standpoint. and they've both put so much into this fight. I mean, neither of these guys can afford to lose, which is just makes it, so much better and so much more thrilling and exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the biggest question when going to this fight, I mean, one of the biggest questions is Crawford too big and too strong for Errol Spence? They're both strong guys. They're both athletic. They both got power, especially Errol Spence. But Crawford's just big, man. He's strong. He gets you in chaotic situations and he controls the chaos. He thrives in chaos. And so this is a super exciting fight. I mean, Crawford, as I said earlier, a switch fighter. He fights amazing for both stances. And then Errol Spence, we all know him as a body snatcher, man. He goes in there and he hits you to the body and you don't last very long. And that, Terrence Crawford's body could be more open when he's switching stances and stuff. So I really don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of time to break it down. We'll definitely be breaking it down more and more towards the end of the fight. But I mean, I think that pretty much covers everything we wanted to get over. We're gonna be back later this week to break down the upcoming UFC card. We also are planning some other cool different type of episodes. Hopefully we'll be bringing you guys soon. Um but without the UFC, combat sports world is still kicking. Split Decision podcast still kicking. You already know. We're gonna keep grinding, keep putting out this content, and we hope you guys enjoy it.
Yep. Thank you, everybody.